If you ask me what my definition of AI is, I would say AI creates the illusion of intelligence. People like myself, people who work in AI, I view us as magicians. We're the David Copperfields or the Harry Houdinis of today, in that we're developing software that looks and interacts with you and me in ways that we think is intelligent. But when you look underneath the covers, it's not intelligent. Computers are very good at some things, not so good at other things.
Welcome to the AI Advantage, where modern leaders decode the future of tech. I'm Solomon Williams, founder of Solanox. So here, it's no noise, no hype every week. Sometimes it's just me, and sometimes it's the brightest minds in tech, breaking down what it really takes to grow smarter with AI and automation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the AI Advantage. I'm your host, Solomon Williams. We have a special guest today. We have Dr. Jonathan Schaeffer. So, Doctor, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I was really excited, having the opportunity to bring you on just because of your wealth of knowledge in the AI space and where AI is going. So, please introduce yourself to the audience and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what is it that's so interesting with AI and what you've seen over your years.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, Solomon. So thank you for the opportunity to chat with you. I started out early on as a computer scientist, was interested in games, happened to find a book that explained how you could write a chess program. And as an undergraduate, I got fascinated by the possibilities of AI playing, grandmaster chess. And that interest in AI and games led to me deciding to go on to graduate school. And I've had a 40-year academic career where I had an incredible time doing research in artificial intelligence and having so much fun because I've applied my research to games. Started out with checkers, went to chess, poker, and a variety of other games. All that's been serious research. Games are just the application, domain to validate many of the ideas. So it's been a great career, but over the last few years, the field of AI really has been turned upside down. We've had some amazing advances, really beginning with the deep learning revolution, which happened in about 2011, 2012. And of course, in 2022, November 30th, 2022, with the public release of ChatGPT, the AI today is unimaginable to a young student like myself 40 years ago. And it's exciting, and I want to be along for the ride. So I've talked a lot about AI today, but as an academic, you talk the talk and you don't walk the walk. And so a couple of years ago, I made the decision to leave academia. I've started my own company, and now I'm working on trying to build products that people will use and address what I would say are some of the current issues with much of the AI technology. So I've reinvented myself as an entrepreneur.
And I really, liked because from all of the, guests that we've had on here, I really am so interested in yours because of you bring that 40, you've been working in this space for so long. And there's a lot of, as you've seen, a lot of hype around AI. And as you said before, 2022, when the start of ChatGPT, we're really seeing it affect more on a consumer level. So what are you thinking? Because a lot of people have this, either it's really good or it's really bad with AI. Can you be able to dispel really the reality of it and where we're at right now? Because we're seeing that commercial involvement of where it's actually making advances, but maybe you can give your take of it because you've been an expert in the field for so long.
So this is sort of a roundabout beginning, so my apologize if it takes too long. But if you ask me what my definition of AI is, I would say AI creates the illusion of intelligence. People like myself, people who work in AI, I view us as magicians. We're the David Copperfields or the Harry Houdinis of today, in that we're developing software that looks and interacts with you and me in ways that we think is intelligent. But when you look underneath the covers, it's not intelligent. Computers are very good at some things, not so good at other things. Humans are very good at some things, not so good at other things. And when it comes to intelligence, the field of AI develops technologies that take advantage of what computers computers are really good at. And computers are really good at doing precise numerical calculations, doing tasks repetitively, billions, trillions of times. And of course, they have this amazing ability to remember everything. And so the solutions that we come up with in AI reflect what computers are good at doing, not what they're bad at doing. And so this is where the illusion of intelligence comes up, because when it comes to something like ChatGPT, we developed technology that has no resemblance to how humans might answer questions, and yet seems to work amazingly well. ChatGPT was stunning. I'd seen earlier versions of ChatGPT. Interesting, not impressive, but November 30th, 2022 was one of those aha moments. But when you look underneath the cover at how it works, you quickly discover that it achieves amazing results using an algorithm that in many ways is, well, it has no relationship to how a human would solve a problem. It's almost counterintuitive. And you might even say it's stupid. Not that the research is stupid, but no human would ever do what ChatGPT is doing. But along with that algorithm comes some flaws. Because I use ChatGPT, but it's an umbrella word to talk about all of the large language models, Gemini, Claude, Anthropic, whatever. So when these programs work, they've ingested literally all the accessible internet, credible amount of data, something that you and I could never do, but a computer can do. And they see things, patterns in text, but they don't understand the text. When I give you a sentence, hopefully it's a clear sentence that you can parse and figure out what I'm saying, and you attach semantics, you attach meaning to what I say. These programs, these chatbots, these large language models, the ChatGPTs, they don't understand what they're saying, but they string words together and they'll see patterns in words. Like if I say, how are blank, maybe you'll think I'm about to say, how are you? And if you search the internet, you'll find that the next word you is a very common word, but there are all sorts of other things that could be there. How is your mother? Could be another follow-on, for example, lots of others. These things, these programs, because they don't understand, make educated guesses as to what the next words are. And sometimes they're right, and sometimes they're wrong. And that's the core reason why we get these silly choice of words, these hallucinations, this anthropomorphizing that these programs make up things and call it hallucinations, but really they're just fabrications, they're lies, whatever you want to call it. And it's fundamental in the algorithm that it's got multiple choices and it tries to make an educated guess. And sometimes the educated guess is wrong and it looks silly. So the technology is impressive. It does a far better job than I ever imagined it would be, but it has some fundamental flaws. What we're doing today is a stepping stone, but it's not the answer. I firmly believe that we will find a better way of doing chatbots, and the current algorithms show us what's possible, but they're not the answer. And I fully expect in the next few years, we will find a better way of doing it that eliminates some of the problems or most of the problems that we have with current chatbots and allows us to interact with these computers in a safe, accurate way.
And I really, with that, because we're still ongoing, as you said, there's still stepping stones to this. Now there's examples of, recently of a Claude coming with the model context protocol, of it being able to interact with outside applications. That's just one big step that we're really seeing on the business side of how it's being able to affect and ingest outside data in real time of that. But with your approach, Doctor, in terms of you being the Dean of Science at the University of Alberta, your career has spanned through, being the research chair at AI with Canada, and then even in your regards to you creating the Polaris and from your gaming on that side, when I'm sure that was a huge moment for you when you led the team to beat human champions for the piece of it. What do you feel that as this continues to grow, and since you have a more deeper understanding of knowledge and the academia, do you feel that, we're making too much headway into AI and how we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak? Should we kind of take a pause? With your experience, what would you kind of say to that? Does that make sense?
Yes. So first of all, just for your listeners, I'll just put in a bit of background since you mentioned some of my gaming work. Early on, I worked on a checkers playing program called Chinook, which won the Human World Checkers Championship. That was the first program to ever win our Human World Championship. Later on, I worked on poker, and that's where the Polaris reference comes. And we had the first world-class performance in two-player Texas Hold'em poker. So I've always been involved in trying to take on big, ambitious projects and strive to achieve success. Now, sorry, I've lost the thread on your question. After giving that background, it's
No, you're fine. It was good on the Polaris with your take of you having it on the Polaris and for Chinook and you beating the human champions of that case, you leading with it. And with your career with being on the Dean side of
sure.
Alberta, and then you're being on the Canada, the research chair on an AI. Where do you, from all of that experience, what can you take and what would you be as a thought leader to those as we can venture forward with AI as we're making these advancements? From what would you kind of caution? What advice would you give to that?
Okay. So I hope I'm not this doesn't come across as disparaging, but the ChatGPT revolution was unexpected. And in the last 3 years, we have seen an amazing infusion of money into AI. Unprecedented. The dot-com era was big and we all have the World Wide Web and we've got e-commerce now, but that took years before it got public acceptance and achieved the impact that it had. AI is happening at an incredible pace. You've got trillion-dollar companies putting literally tens, hundreds of billions of dollars into AI. And everybody is searching for what you might call the holy grail of AI. The vision that people had going back to the first real AI conference in 1956 was this notion of not just AI, artificial intelligence, but AGI, artificial general intelligence, an AI that you could do anything with. You could talk to, it could create, it could solve problems, everything. And so right now we're in the midst of what I call an AI gold rush. Everybody's trying to get to the finish line. It's a race. You got these big heavyweight companies investing in people, money, infrastructure, data centers in particular, to be first to the finish line, to claim the prize of AGI. And let's be candid, untold wealth. That's what they see, dollar sign.
Right.
But it's a race, but I worry that it's a race on steroids because there are flaws in what we're currently doing today. It is a stepping stone, but we're ignoring the flaws. Hallucinations are the most obvious one. Who wants a program that's unreliable, that makes mistakes? And what really is scary about many of these programs and how people use them, people ask them questions and assume that the answers are correct. And they don't know. I mean, if I ask ChatGPT a question and I don't know the answer and it gives me back an answer, do I trust it? That's scary because if I trust it, I may be making a mistake. And I'm sure there's lots of news stories of people who just took what comes out of these chatbots, put them into their work and get publicly ridiculed when it turns out to be factually incorrect and embarrassing. So we have problems with hallucinations. We have problems with safety. I'm sure there's lots of stories where people have manipulated these programs to have, say, abusive or offensive behavior. There are flaws in security. These chat programs can be manipulated to embed commands to do things that they shouldn't be doing, insecure. We have this rush to bigger is better, size matters. There's this rule that seems to be in effect that the more data you feed these AI programs, the incrementally better they become. We're at the law of diminishing returns where a lot more data makes very little difference, but all these companies, they want more data. But more data means you need more processing power to build bigger and better models. And how many hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars are we investing in data centers with the environmental impact? I mean, I could go on. There's all sorts of problems with these programs. And then you have the issue that people are saying, oh, we're getting close to AGI. But what about the guardrails? There are concerns, and they're legitimate concerns, that we might create a program that's smarter than us and can do all sorts of things that perhaps might not be compatible with humans. And I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. But given that there's potential danger down the road, shouldn't we be more cautious, put safety in place with guardrails to ensure that bad things don't happen? Bad things are happening today at a micro level, but bad things could happen in the future at a macro level. So I understand the need to race and to get to the finish line first, but maybe that's not the most important thing. Maybe we need, as a society, as a civilization that wants to survive, that wants to take an incredible technology and use it to enhance the quality of life of everybody in this world. Maybe we need to be a little bit more retrospective, go a little slower, put in the appropriate guardrails, because once you let the cat out of the bag, it's hard to get it back in. And I'm worried that we're rushing headlong into something that may be letting the cat out of the bag.
And I do agree. I think even in my work, because we work with businesses that we're on cloud consulting, now they're wanting to look at AI. Everyone's talking about AI, but now it's taking a step back into auditing. Like, how do we properly assess this into a governance framework, compliance? If we're having to do with financial, healthcare, with PII, with people's audience that don't know, with personal information for HIPAA, even with the DoD now on the government side of now wanting to take a step back and wanting to assess, do we have the right foundations? And I think to your point, and getting on to your entrepreneurship is, is that what is going more towards as we ingest more data, as it gets more involved into our lives? We see with open law, with any process, the folks that are utilizing this technology and bypassing the guardrails. What are you hoping to see from your experience into this entrepreneurship? What is, as we kind of deep into Sincera and Kind, the business that you're going for, what are you hoping to amend?
Well, first of all, I want to comment about governance and perhaps even legislation, but we as a society need to get out of our mode where politicians or agencies react to what's happened. We need to be proactive. We need to get ahead of this because the AI field is moving very quickly. And you just can't build a plane and put people in it and fly it anywhere. There's so much regulation about the parts and how it's put together and the policies and the practice and standardization. And airplanes are incredibly safe. In the early days, they weren't. Now they are. We're in the early days of AI. I don't think it's safe. We need to put governance, legislation, oversight, auditing of these programs in place to ensure that they can be deployed safely. Maybe that's naive. Maybe it's wishful thinking. But from my point of view, the biggest problem I see right now with AI is a lack of trust. If you want to deploy AI and you want to get it accepted and you want people to use it to their benefit, there needs to be a trust relationship. And survey after survey shows that people are skeptical. They don't trust government. They don't trust the big companies. They hear all these negative things in the media about AI. We don't have a trust relationship. That bothers me. I've been in this business a long time and I want AI to be transformative. I want AI to make this a better world. So in my own small way, I'm trying to do that. We've created a product called Kind. Kind is actually an acronym for knowledge in depth. And what it's intended to be is the kind of AI that I think we need right now. It's not bleeding edge. It's not the latest model. It's not the biggest and most powerful AI chatbot out there. But what it is, a product that abstracts away all of the problems. It's something that you run on your local computer to understand your data, not the world's data. The world's data is full of noise. There's lots of crap out there on the internet these chatbots have ingested. Only your data. Privacy. It's done in a way where there's no security issue. It's done in a way that there's safety. It's done in a way that's accurate. There are no hallucinations. And so there's a little bit of price that you pay because you lose a little bit of functionality. But from my point of view, to be safe, secure, private, accurate, that's the AI I want. That's the utopian vision that we should be striving for. And today's mainstream AI doesn't provide that. But maybe with a personal product, something that we can get out to the masses, we can achieve that and we can help people build trust in AI.
And I really love that because you're taking the approach of it you're bringing it back into the people's hands because we don't know as much as we utilize. I think it comes from you don't think about it, all the impacts, all the promptings, the pictures, everything that you do is feeding their database and inputting it in. So, for your side, how do you plan what is your vision for Kind and what would you like it to see over the next couple of years as it takes off and goes forward? What's your goal? What's your hope for it as it continues to grow?
What I want to see is people using AI in a way that gives them value in the results and confidence evidence that what they're doing is safe, secure, private. There's a lot of things in computing and infrastructure that we take for granted, and they're terrible. I mean, just look at email. There can be viruses in your attachments. There can be spam. There can be phishing, right? There's so many bad things that can happen in your email. And the solution isn't to get rid of all that stuff. It's to try and educate people so they don't do silly things and install viruses on their account. But I don't like that kind of thinking. Why should I be wary every time I read an email that it might be spam or a virus or something? If I had a wish for kind, it would be that we could deploy AI in a way where people don't have any worries. They have these guarantees that the answers are accurate, it's private, it's safe, it's secure, because that's what we all want. I don't want the negativity. We need to find a way to get rid of the negativity. And that's true in kind, but it's also true in general for all the big companies. They need to work harder at trying to address these issues.
And, with it, as we kind of move through and addressing these issues, I'm curious to take your spin on it with your knowledge and base. If you came on as a consultant for one of these bigger companies, as, bringing on as an AI consultant and reviewing the cases, if we want to push this over to outside clients, and, what are the things that you would look for in governance and risks that they need to assess before they put this into their own business applications or put it over into consumers?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So first of all, the big thing is AI governance. I've talked with many companies. They don't know what I'm talking about. It's not even there. If you're going to deploy AI, you need to have the proper processes in place. The most obvious example is data. If you're going to build any kind of application that is based on machine learning, that data better be gold. It has to have been vetted. It has to have been filtered. It has to be checked for bias. That requires governance. That requires processes. That requires things like independent auditors. That requires ethical standards. My goodness, where's ethics in all of this discussion? It's critically important. And so we are early days, and I'm not faulting a lot of companies because they really don't know yet. This is new to them. But the first thing these companies need to do is find out about AI ethics, find out about AI governance, and put processes in place, and not just on paper. I hate to say this, but there are a lot of companies who put, I'll call them boilerplate governance or statements on their web pages that say great things, but talking the talk is one thing, walking the walk is another. And I would love to see some sort of stamp of approval at some point in the future. We get to the point where you can put this big stamp on this product, like, this product has been audited by professional societies to ensure the highest quality ethical standards have been done to ensure a safe, bias-free, high-quality AI product.
SOC 2, similar like SOC 2, like that. And
everything across the board, right? Because the consequences of getting it wrong are terrible. And we're seeing that today. And that's not the kind of AI I want. I want AI that people trust. I don't want to keep hearing about all these bad stories. I want them to go away for the right reasons.
And, you even see now is that, you have this concern, even for the consumers and even for the folks that are listening in for this call. You hear this on the news that, AI is removing entry-level jobs, and that it is, whether it's right or wrong, or it's the image that's being pushed through. And now we're in this era, as you could say, that like the new .com is people have to, it's a huge change that we have to adopt AI into our day-to-day lives. So for those that are, what is your suggestion, Doctor, on how do we start with that, training ourselves, training the people that are listening? What can they do to not only use applications like Kind to protect their data, but to help them feel like they're not being behind? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it took a long time, but computer literacy is now fundamental in the K-12 education. You can't get through an educational system without being taught about how to use computers, how to use the core applications, understand what network is and memory, understand what a virus is, and to practice safe usage of things like email. We need to do the same thing with AI. We need an educated audience. We need people to understand what currently the risks are with AI. And AI is a much more serious potential problem. We have fake news. We have fake videos. We have AI impersonating people in email messages and scams, etc. People need to understand what AI can do, what it can't do, how to be a safe and responsible user of AI. And so the biggest thing right now that I would love to see is enhanced AI education, AI literacy. Doesn't mean you need to be an expert and you need to know what the latest model is and how many billion or trillion parameters it has or whatever. You don't need to know that. But the fundamental concepts of what AI is, how it works, and what you as a consumer need to do to deploy it, use it in a safe and responsible way, I think is critical. So get the message out. We need to educate people.
So what would that's a really good point. What would an AI literacy curriculum, or what would that look like? What more skills or concepts can people take after listening to this as they move forward with AI, whether it's ChatGPT, any of the LLMs or so forth? What can they do?
Well, the point here is that they would understand how these tools work at the high level and why they make mistakes or can do dangerous things. So what they can do is then use one of these chat programs in a safe way, that you ask it a question, you get an answer back, and you're skeptical. The answer might be right 99% of the time, but sometimes it's going to be wrong, and you need to question it. You need to understand what these programs can do and what they shouldn't do. I just want people to reap the benefits from them in a safe way.
I even myself have been faulty at that. I was doing a build out, I was doing research for a project or a client, and I was getting together, building out the architecture for the cloud architecture, and Microsoft came out with a new service and it built out. I was using deep research from, I think I was using Claude and Gemini together. And, I get these sources, but to your point, because it's easier, one of my other architects has said, Solomon, I think we need to look back at this because I don't think this is right. I think it's been outdated. And I had to look back into one of the other sources and it was correct. It was one of the appreciated and it was just recent, but in the last 2 or 3 months that it was, but the AI didn't know that, but I took it for granted. And that's just a clear example of what you're explaining is taking it for granted, and it might be right 99% of the time. And I think that's where, as we go forward, that divide can get much bigger. Would you say so?
Yeah, but also the consequences of getting it wrong and trusting it can be huge. It could induce risk. It could induce embarrassment. It can hurt you in many, many ways. And that risk is not going to drop to zero anytime soon.
It really taught me to really take back and to really chunk it down into sizes and to really take my time with it. Because even with myself making those mistakes. So with that, Doctor, I'm really your last one of the few questions I have for you is in the next few years, as we're continuing to see this investment, this buildup of AI, really going to the stratosphere. What is your thought or predictions for this in the next, even if we get to 2030, of what you see?
Okay, boy, I have made many predictions and they're all wrong. And it's not that the predictions are wrong per se in what they predict is going to happen, but they're wrong in the time frame when they're going to happen. And I have been consistently high in the sense that I think something will happen, say, in 20 years and it happens in 5 years. Things are just happening so fast. And so the question people ask me is AGI. When is AGI going to come? And when I look at the fundamental limitations of what we're doing now, and I don't understand and I don't see how we can solve some of these problems. To me, AGI is not something that's going to happen in the next few years. Maybe if we think there's a 5-year horizon, then I don't see it happening in the next 5 years. And what bothers me is that we've seen this thing, AGI is just around the corner. And we saw it soon after ChatGPT came out. There was a lot of hype of it in 2024 and a lot of hype of it in 2025. And there's now a lot of hype of 2026. All these predictors, they're going to be right because it's just around the corner. It's just around the corner. And eventually it'll be here. I don't believe it's going to happen in the next 5 years. And I actually think it's longer than that. But the problem is that so much research is going into AI right now. We're seeing this hockey stick phenomenon where things are reaching this dramatic acceleration. It's like you can't. If you skip a day of reading the news, you've missed the latest developments. It's happening so quickly.
It is.
So it won't happen in the next 5 years. That's my prediction. But my track record on those kind of predictions is poor. So take it for what it's worth.
And I think I don't like to, because you hear a lot of, as I mentioned back before and earlier, is you hear this either it's really good, like it's going to change, as you said, AGI, or it's terrible, that it's a, Terminator, it's going to take away. And I don't like to usually kind of be in those camps. There's always something in the middle. As you said, we need to think of it as more proactively of regulations of how do you, on businesses, how to be competitive, but at the same time, take a step back and assess it. And I really like how you're doing with Kind, just on the consumer level of giving people the privacy. They work what it is, and it helps them to become much better.
Well, the secret has to be we need to educate people, and we need to provide products that give them the confidence that they will use AI. They need to see the value, and they need to build that trust. And it's a long road. It's very easy to lose trust. It's very hard to earn trust. So I think we as a community, when I say community, I mean industry, businesses, academics, we need to work hard to fix the problems with AI so that we can build trust with the public. And that's the best way to move this technology forward. You need people to trust it.
Yeah. So, and I always ask our guests this, if you had that magic wand, Doctor, if ChatGPT 13 or just even in this next 5 years, or what would you want AI to do, whether for yourself personally or in a business side, if you had that wand, what would you change? What would you add?
Well, what I want to see, and this is not AGI, but I want to see Star Trek. If you go to the original, the entire Star Trek series, think about the computer. The computer helped run the starship. It did it in a safe way. You could ask it questions. It would give you advice, but the human was always in charge. The guardrails were in place. There was AI in the computer that allowed it to do things that enabled the humans to basically run an incredibly complex machinery, make important life-preserving or life-solving, life-threatening problems. That's what I want to see. That's got to be our goal. Safe, secure, accurate AI that helps us do the things that we want to do. AI has to be all about a different kind of AI, augmented intelligence. I want AI to be deployed in a way that helps augment us, what we can do, what we can build, the problems that we can solve, the enjoyment that we can get from life.
So with that being said, and I really want this to be the same as well for those that are wanting to, try out Kind and want to utilize it for their betterment, where can they go to learn more and, be able to test it out?
Thank you for mentioning that, Solomon. I appreciate it. Our company is called Syncira, Synsira, Syncira.com. If you go to Syncira.com, it takes you to the product page. Kind is available in 2 versions. There's the free version, which has got some limits on it, and there's the pro version, which obviously costs money. And we welcome everybody to go and try the free version. It may meet your needs. You may find it's a very powerful tool for understanding the incredible data that most people have on their computer, whether it be family history or interesting articles or videos that you've collected or pictures. Kind ingests those, analyzes them, and allows you to ask questions about your data in a safe and accurate way. Try it out.
Yeah, no, this is great. And then for those that try it out and wanting to hear from you, what is the pros of getting that pro one, that paid version? What can they expect to get from that?
The pro version allows you to do more data, bigger collections. You're not going to ingest your whole laptop files into the free version, clearly. So there's size limitations that are relaxed in the pro version, and coming soon is greater functionality in the pro version than in the free version.
No. Okay, good. And for those that are wanting to, look into Syncira, wanting to try out Kind, we'll have all those links down below for you able to look into it, test it out yourself, and really be able to see making sure that we're always striving for and keeping that privacy of your data in your hands. And, Dr. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I know we've been dealing with a little bit of back end technical difficulties, but I was so interested interested in having you on just because you have a wealth of knowledge. Your experience 40 years into the technology where we're seeing it. So I want to give you this last bit of for people that are coming on, because the show really wants to focus on, other CEOs, other thought leaders that are in business, whether it's on the business side or on actual practitioners. What question would you have for the next guest in terms of what are they doing? What can they do for AI governance or to keeping their privacy? Does that make sense? What would you ask them?
Well, the first thing, if they're a corporation, I would say, do you have AI governance in place and why not? And the and why not is obvious because most of them don't. And so that's the first question that they all need to answer. And for the individual, the question I would ask them is, do you understand the risks of using online chatbots? I'm not trying to scare people. I don't want to scare people. I just want to know whether they're educated about the safe usage of these tools. And if they're not, then I'd like to help them get educated. So it's education, whether we're talking about the individual or the corporation. Everything boils down to education.
And for that education for the businesses that even if they don't, if they didn't know, where is the first steps they can start with? Obviously data. Is there another piece of it that they can do to help them get started?
Well, the first thing is that there's lots of resources on the web, and I'm not going to cite any of them because there's so many. But whoever is interested in this, all you need to do is do a search, whether it be data governance or particular AI governance, whether it be AI safety or understanding AI hallucinations. There's some incredible resources on the web, and that's the first place to start.
Perfect. No. And for those that are coming onto the show, thank you so much for tuning in for Dr. Jonathan Schaeffer. So for anyone else that wants to follow you, Doctor, can they follow on LinkedIn or what kind of seeing through your progression in your career?
So I'm on LinkedIn, or if you go to sincera.com, you can get on our mailing list and see updates. And I'm about to start a blog on our webpage where I will be posting my thoughts on many of today's issues. So if you're interested in some of the things I have to say, fairly soon you'll be able to see some of them online.
Perfect. And for those, thanks again for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the AI Advantage. If this episode sparked an idea, share it with your network. Subscribe for more no-fluff conversations on how smart tech drives real outcomes. And if you're ready to future-proof your business, let's connect at solonox.net.